All right, here I am.
Well, here we are, unprepared, ready to go. We're going to talk about some week 2 for a few minutes, then we're going to look through week 3. This is Ron and Cris. We are just going through our work process. It's not our job to entertain you, it's our job to talk about football and what makes us tick and what makes us bet. So we will get right down to it. How was your week 2, Ron?
Well, I have no complaints about Saturday, but Sunday wasn't to my liking. 1-3 Sunday, picked up a win on Pittsburgh on Monday. I forgot that I had another loser the previous week, so college is unsustainable right now. It's really hot. NFL is 4-6, so a little bit behind the 8 ball. But once again, Cris, it's still. I'm not displeased with the plays I made. That's the way it went.
Yeah, I made the same comment to somebody else this morning who thought I regretted betting the Lions this last week. And I don't regret it. There were a lot of situations. They didn't win. Oh, well. I thought it was a great situation. I tried to talk you off that Baltimore or that Cincinnati ledge.
Yeah, that didn't work. I didn't talk me off that.
I told you that Burrow was injured. Gosh darn it.
Well, on the Friday show, I did say we'll know if he's hurt or not hurt based on how many times he runs. He ran one time. Obviously, he still knows that he's not 100%. And then at the end of the game, it got worse. And based on the odds, which I'm sure we'll talk about later on, it appears he's going to miss this week. But one other factor from last week, you and I talked, I think online, but definitely offline on Sunday morning. We didn't have anything big going on Sunday. It was a tricky card. We talked about money management, and we continue to impress upon people money management. There really wasn't even a 2-star. Closest I came was Jacksonville, who basically decided that they would play with college rules and just have 1 foot in the end zone a bunch of times instead of 2 feet. Don't regret that play at all, but that's the closest I came to a real strong opinion this past week. We just didn't have any strong opinions.
I ended up with a toilet roll of, good stuff data-wise, good data history type stuff. And I started off the week with the Minnesota win, and then I ended up pissing that back to only just remain slightly above for the week. So a little annoyed by that. But as you said, nothing bigger than a half unit or half a normal play within that toilet roll. So, and I noticed I looked back to last year, and I only had half full unit size plays in week 3 last year, but I've already I might go a little higher this year on a couple, but there's no reason to dive in too heavy. It's a long season. I think I already have 44 or 45 plays through the first 2 weeks, so it's been. I want to take this week light. Was there anything obvious? Most of what happened last week is pretty obvious. Doesn't need to be rehashed.
Yeah, I could make a couple of notes on some of the games. I'm just going to skip. I'm looking at my week. Green Bay, Atlanta. I'll just point out some things and get your opinion. Green Bay, Atlanta. I still have Green Bay a half a point power rating wise ahead of Atlanta. Where are you on that?
You have Green Bay ahead of Atlanta.
Yeah.
I have Atlanta 1 better.
Okay. So we're in a little bit of disagreement there. We're letting the numbers soak in. We're still not changing over, neither one of us. But I didn't see anything that just because Atlanta squeezed out a win at home that made them superior to Green Bay at this point.
No, actually, it's less than 1. It's 0.75 of a point.
Yeah. Let's see. What else can I tell you? I think I mentioned this briefly, and I'm going to reiterate it. Tampa Bay's experience is showing. They're basically not a great team, but if you compare them to the teams with the young quarterbacks and the young offensive lines And the younger wide receivers, they have an advantage. They have Evans, they have Godwin, they have Baker Mayfield, who's played 5-6 years in the league, and he's pretty savvy. His ceiling is low, but he can get the job done in crunch time. He knows where the markers are. He rallies the troops. He's engaged in the game. I feel like I was a little bit too low on Tampa Bay, even though I still don't think they're by any means a playoff worthy team. I just think I was a little too low.
We kind of always left that window that Tampa Bay, could surprise, as you said, be pesty, and they're more than pesty. With the 2-0 start, Mayfield has been showing some great leadership skills. He's really latching on to the players, supporting the players. He's made some good plays. I believe that there was comments made by some of the players. At least one player said he didn't even want to come back, and now he's like gratefully came back. He's having a great time, and everybody's just got the great attitude. I don't think you can underestimate Tampa Bay at this point. I think they are a possible playoff team technically, believe it or not, but they're certainly playing like it so far through 2 games.
I have some comments to make about the Saints. 2 surprising comments for me. Number one is Michael Thomas, like I think was said in our Friday week 1 show. And so he's engaged in there. The conversation, the laughter he had with Derek Carr, who seemed to take over the locker room in terms of leadership role. It really showed, I think, for the Saints were buttoned up last year, and Dennis Allen's not a great offensive mastermind, but they seem to be loosening up this year. And the other move that I was pleasantly shocked at for them, is in crunch time, trying to run out the clock. They brought in Taysom Hill as their quarterback to run out the clock and get that first down, burning all of the timeouts left by Carolina. I thought that was an outstanding move. Taysom Hill hadn't been stopped at all in the run game, getting 5-6 yards every time he carried. And I just thought that was a really innovative thing from a team that's generally not innovative offensively.
There's just still something off with them. It's going to be interesting to see what they do this week. I'm kind of looking forward to that game.
Yeah. Robert says it would be nice to get your prop money back if you bet on a player that gets hurt.
Who said that?
Robert in the chat.
Where is that? I missed that one.
I will say this cryptically because it's the last thing I don't share, but running back injuries is a very important concept in seasonal win betting. And you never should get your money back if somebody gets injured. That's the risk you take.
I don't know why I'm not finding that comment, but I couldn't agree more. I tweeted it out again last night. If you're worried about getting refunds on props, you should pack it up. You're not mentally for this. You're not. You're missing a major component of what this is all about. And whining and pissing and moaning about bad beats or refunds. That this is like in a whole nother level of you're way far in the deep end, out of your comprehension, and that's okay. But just understand that the way it is you want shops that treat you with respect, that the rules are the same for everybody. You don't have ambiguity. Well, am I going to have to do this? Do I have to beg for this? That's all horseshit, because the only sports books that are doing that for you are the trash sports books. The trash sports books that cut your limits, that give you crappy lines, crappy policies, crappy odds. And they camouflage it with their marketing expense of occasional refunds. And this is why you're in the deep end, because you don't get it. You don't get that one little refund is more important to you than 10, 15 other things that are important about a sports book. You're going to chase that little refund because you don't know what you're doing. You're in the deep end. So that's my comment on it. You want limits posted, people treated fairly, everything equal and everything available and good odds. That's what you want. You don't want to be getting ripped off on the policies and the odds and every little ticky-tack thing that you don't realize. The I need a refund people don't understand that they're paying a hell of a lot more through all these other bets that they're placing. So that's simple. That's like 100% fact. It's not even disputable.
Yeah, our job is not to worry about these kinds of plays. Our job is to handicap the game. If you're talking about futures, handicap the futures and look at probabilities. How many games is this team going to, this player going to play? What happens week 16 or 17? Are they going to sit players because they're in the playoffs? What pass defenses are they going up against? What quarterbacks are they going up against if you're taking a defensive player? Because schedules change from year to year. There's so many things that we need to worry about in terms of making the proper play, not worrying about, oh my goodness, I made this play and look, he got hurt. If you bet the unders, you win. It's as simple as that. Anybody who bet Nick Chubb unders is happy. So we'll see how that goes.
It's just real life. Welcome to the non-participation trophy part of the world. Anything else on last week?
Okay, one or two other things. I think we hinted when we talked about the San Francisco Ram game that Stafford would have to throw a lot. That was kind of a throw-in situation. San Francisco and Dallas, you can say whatever you want about the AFC. They're loaded with quarterbacks. We know that. But San Francisco and Dallas right now are my two top-rated teams. And they've earned that. They're in the AFC. They're going to have separation from most of the other teams in the NFC. In looking back at San Francisco and the Rams, I thought they both played well. Stafford looks good. The team looks pretty good. They look energized. They're getting rid of guys like Cam Akers, who apparently something's going on behind the scenes. And they want to be a well-oiled team that believes in what McVay is teaching them. And meanwhile, San Francisco, if you took San Francisco, the way they script their plays, and you said, yes or no, would they score on their first drive? They must score on their first drive an extremely high percentage.
It seems that way.
It's just incredible what they do in terms of preparation for the next game. And it'll be interesting because now they have a short week. A little bit less preparation, what happens in terms of that first drive. But San Francisco, and like the comment you're putting up there, Dallas, these guys are really playing at a high level right now. And I know a lot of teams, we talked about it week one, they're not playing at a high level because week one was like the preseason. But San Francisco and Dallas, they're not in preseason right now. They're in midseason form.
So what's the AFC versus the NFC record after 2 weeks?
It's skewed to the NFC. I believe they're up, 3, 4, 5 games now. I don't have it in front of me, but I was thinking about that.
6-0. 6-0.
6, okay. Yep. Yeah. So we'll see. I think in the end it'll even out, but still, if San Francisco, Dallas, and I think Philadelphia as well belong in the top 3 to 5 team conversation. And all the other teams, there's flaws. Miami's defense isn't perfect. We know what the Chargers are doing right now. Baltimore is going to be in a battle every time they play. Jacksonville's a few players short from being a really top 2 or 3 team in the AFC. I still think Kansas City is going to be done in by their late schedule. I can find a flaw in every AFC team.
I was really disappointed in the Jets. I thought that they would fare better. It just, boy, I feel bad for Jets fans. It just, I'll leave it at that. The Bears suck.
The Bears may be the worst team right now.
No.
I mean, it's a coaching issue. It's a defensive issue. It's a how do we use Justin Fields and what should we do with him issue. There's so many things going on with that team. It's a drafting issue for sure.
Frank Reich's got to stop making the play calls.
Mm-hmm. I will agree with that.
What about these Washington and Denver? That was actually pretty interesting.
Yeah, I have a neat stat with Washington. They have 10 offensive sacks. They've allowed their quarterback to be sacked 10 times, and they in turn have sacked opposing quarterbacks 10 times. So if we were at the end of the year, they would have 85 sacks and allow 85 sacks, both world records. I think that would be fascinating if that continued. I mentioned last week, sacks are up this year. I mean, people are getting to the quarterback, and guys like Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson. I don't know about you, Cris, but both of them look slower than I've seen and far less decisive than I've seen.
Well, I can't believe he got away with the hands on the ref. He gets the 2 penalties, and I cracked the joke on Twitter. The guy's so handsy, he should get a job with TSA. I thought that was. What are they doing? I mean, anybody else would have been kicked out of the game for that. It's just amazing what this guy gets away with. And you're right, both of those quarterbacks. Oh boy! But do you think Wilson was any better last week than the first week, or you think he was too flat?
He took 7 sacks last week.
Did he take 7? I didn't even realize that.
Is that right? Maybe no, I could be wrong. He took 7 the first week and only 3 this past week, but he fumbled. He held on the ball. He had a key fumble. They were up 21-3 with the ball.
I was trying to cash my tickets already.
Yeah. In this league, even if you're up 28-7, apparently with the Cardinals, you can't cash tickets until the final gun. We had 2 overtime games. We had games decided that were 21-3 and 20-0 at the end. And Giants at one point outscored 60-0. The Pittsburgh Steelers, when you look at Cleveland, their defense has definitely improved. They allowed 2 defensive TDs. Otherwise, Pittsburgh didn't do enough. Cleveland's come to play defensively. But I think we're going to see more normalized performance, offensively and defensive performance this coming week. I don't get too hooked on what happened.
I have dinged Philadelphia quite a bit. In case people haven't heard, McNabb came out and said that Hurts is hurt, and that's not helping the situation. You've got 2 new coordinators on that team. Things are just not right. How many turnovers did the Vikings have? Was it 5 or 4?
The Vikings are -6 in turnover ratio. They're -3 each game.
But they had like 5 or 6 last game.
Yeah, they. I don't know what the ratio could have been.
With 5-2.
Yeah.
So Philly's getting a lot of breaks their way, and I'm not going to be surprised if this Tampa Bay is as pesty as Ron would say.
Yeah, it seems to be a word I've used a couple of times there. Yeah. Interesting slate this week. You got a couple of 2-0s versus 2-0s, and then you have the Chargers who are 0-2 and Minnesota who 0-2. Minnesota probably feels like I know that if they are even in turnovers in both games, they're 2-0. And if the Chargers make one more play in each of their games, they're 2-0. You got 2 teams, one of which is going to go to 0-3 on the year, and they had higher aspirations than this.
That's just amazing to think that one of those teams is going to be 0-3. And, my numbers come out dead even on that. That's just, who knows? It's probably going to end up being like that Green Bay Atlanta game last week where they're just back and forth at the end.
My numbers are exactly like yours, dead even. I do have a situation that favors a very high scoring game, but the over-under is already through the roof at 54 or so.
Yeah, I went over that, I think.
Yeah,
I run 2 parallel systems, and one of the systems has the Chargers by a half, and the other system has the Vikings by a half. So.
Yeah.
What about this Giants 49ers game on Thursday? Anything? Short week, but they're staying out west, so they don't have the travel issue. Barkley, the coach came out and said that he's a game time decision for Barkley, but I don't think he's going to play.
Yeah, I would have to treat it as he's not going to play. The thing I like about the Giants is ton of confidence, shot in the arm with what happened in the second half. So now they believe in themselves. The thing I don't like, no defensive sacks, 10 sacks allowed. If this was a normal Sunday game, boy, the 49ers would be feasting. Now, you never know off a divisional game that they just played on the road against the Rams, whether or not they have enough time to reset their bodies, reset their motivation, and do what they need to do against the Giants. But with Barkley out, you've got to figure that Daniel Jones is going to be in pass situations more than anybody on that team, coaching staff included, want to put Daniel Jones in passing situations.
I thought they would be running him more.
Well, he might run more, but who else is going to carry the load? I mean, anybody else who carries the load for the Giants is going to run 2.5 yards a carry. They're most likely not going to penetrate that San Francisco front four using the run game. So the question is, do you trust Daniel Jones on rollouts to hit his many, many different kinds of receivers and move the chains to keep San Francisco off the field?
Well, they like to throw that ball down the middle, and that's like the sweet spot of the San Francisco defense. So they're going to have to come up with something else, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Again, San Francisco coming off a divisional game short week has me holding back just a little. But they're right now, I just wouldn't. We talked about this last year about how I would use the phrasing, I don't like to get in front of a train wreck. When there's a team that obviously looks better than another team, why do you want to keep betting against them? So this is going to be a hard pass for me.
I got the easy cover with the Rams, Ron. So I want
I like the way you signaled in to Staley from on top.
I had that field goal.
3 points. There's 4 seconds left. I had that
field goal handicapped.
Yeah. That was perfect.
The Browns losing Chubbs, boy, that's a shame. Gruesome. Jesus. What annoys me is you're going down Twitter and the videos automatically play and you can't miss it. And all these people keep retweeting it. I don't want to see that.
Yeah, I know.
So the Titans, are they ever going to play a 4-point game either direction this season?
The Titans prefer 16-15 as their normalized score. On the paper, this looks like another 18-15, 17-15 game. I was a little surprised at the set of 40 to be the opening number that I saw as far as the over-under. The line seems correct to me. You can't run on Tennessee that well anyway. And now with Nick Chubb out, Ford had a big day. I got to give him credit, but Tennessee's probably going to bottle him up. They're going to have to use Ford out in space. They're going to have to create situations that Watson is comfortable in. Right now, Watson just doesn't look comfortable at all. By the same token, you say the same about Ryan Tannehill. What's to say he doesn't throw 1 or 2 interceptions against this tenacious Cleveland defense? This game is going to be won or lost by who makes the fewest mistakes.
So who has a better defense than Cleveland in the NFL?
Better than Cleveland? Tough to say after 2 weeks. I mean, you can't fault San Francisco, although I'm worried about their pass defense. I like what the Jets bring in the secondary. Going through my list. I mean, Cleveland, I thought Cleveland let down last year. This is what I expected last year from them. And so far, they're delivering right now. So, yeah, you'd have to say Cleveland is one of the top defenses through 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's pretty solid there. So something to keep an eye on. I feel a little bit better about my Baltimore divisional future.
Yeah, it's a long season in that division. Strap on because they're going to be ebbs and flows. And, Baltimore, we know that they have a lot of good past drafts to make them deep, but they test that depth every year because of these injuries. They cannot afford a Gus Edwards injury with Dobbins out. Beckham is banged up. The offensive line, Stanley just can't get healthy. The secondary has 1 or 2 players that are playing on fumes. It's a tightrope with Baltimore.
Houston Jacksonville game really doesn't look very fun.
Now, very impressed with Stroud so far. No interceptions,
Yeah.
coming from behind. He should be throwing into coverage. I'm really pleasantly surprised with how Stroud's performing. I did not peg him to be able to start out of the gate and do this. Houston's got a lot of holes right now. It's going to take some time. And I don't think Jacksonville's a complete team either. They really had so many opportunities to score points against Kansas City and didn't get it done in an early season revenge game. So I would not be surprised if Jacksonville wins ugly in this game.
I do literally next to zero in-game betting. I just, I don't know. I said I was going to look at it more this year, but I think I want to watch less. That's what I've learned the first 2 weeks of the season is I want to watch less because it's, I'm having a profitable year, so it's not sour grapes. I'm sick and tired of these referee calls. I'm sick and tired of the random penalties or no penalties. The Lions game ended up with Hutchinson getting mugged. But before that, they called the intentional grounding that shouldn't have been called. It's just unpleasant to watch. And it just, for me, for my mental psyche, I kind of like to watch the Twitter flow, the Twitter rant and comments, and just show me the score because the actual visuals just enhance the torture, so to speak.
You can add 2 other referee calls that were questionable. There was apparently a mugging in the 2-point conversion try in the Washington-Denver game after the Hail Mary that Denver got to get within 2. Apparently, there should have been a pass interference called on that. Then they get the ball Denver at the 1, and maybe they squeeze it in, and we've got a tie game in overtime for the lucky Denver people who probably didn't deserve to be there anyway, even though they were up 21-3. And then I think there was one of last night's game where somebody got, was it the Carolina New Orleans game or the Cleveland Pittsburgh? There was a 4th down play as well. So we're seeing, I tend to not get involved in these referee calls, but you hate to see them at the end of the game. In the middle of the game, well, just suck it up. And, there never used to be replay anyway, so just suck it up. But at the end of the game, we're talking 3 games. What is that? Almost 20% of the games possibly decided by one referee call on the last play of each game.
Yeah, it's bothersome, quite frankly. I've got nothing on this Houston Jacksonville game. I doubt very severely if I'm going to get involved in it. Houston's missing their whole front line, like you said. Stroud's playing excellent. Jacksonville, they let one get away. They could have had that last one. They needed that one.
Yeah.
Patriots, Jets. I can't get away from these Patriots. To me, there are people on both sides of this game saying there's only one way to play this game. It's one of those games. I've talked to people that are like, New England's absolutely the play. Absolutely 100%. These are the reasons why. And then there's other people, the Jets are absolutely the play, and these are the reasons. And it's so strap in for this one.
Yeah. So, we talked about what the value was from Zach Wilson to Aaron Rodgers last week, and I was lower than most, but Dallas presented a problem for a Zach Wilson type quarterback. The thing of it is, I do think Zach Wilson will play better this week, and I think they'll put him in more favorable situations. And one thing I like to do is look at the box scores. And the big problem I have with last week's box score is that Breece Hall carried the ball 4 times. That's not going to happen this week. New England is going to give away the run. They gave away the run, as I expected, against Miami, trying to double team Tyreek Hill to prevent him from having the big play. I think this is a more favorable matchup for the Jets. I'm not saying you absolutely have to play that side, but at 3 points, I think the line is kind of near 3. It was 3. It's 2.5 with juice.
It's 3.
Yeah.
I know
at 3,
you can get both.
Yeah, I think you could show some value with the Jets according to my numbers. The question is, will their game plan be better than it was last week? You cannot run Breece Hall just 4 times.
You had a question on the 3.5 points in the NFL. Is that the same in college for turnovers?
3.75 in college because there's more scoring, and even with the clock rules, there's generally more possessions. In higher scoring games, when you lose a ball in the red zone, most likely you're going to score a touchdown as opposed to a field goal in the NFL. So 3.75 in college, 3.5 in the NFL.
I do kind of lean that under 37 on that Pats game. It just seems like it'll be hard fought.
Yeah, I would think the Jets are going to scale it down. Why would you want Zach Wilson thrown into coverage ever? I mean, you want to scale it down and try to control clock and everything. And New England doesn't trust their quarterback much, and they probably shouldn't against Sauce Gardner and the Jets secondary. So this does look like a game where 1st to 20 would win.
So here's the question back at you. Where do you have New Orleans ranked versus Green Bay?
I have New Orleans a 0.5 point higher than Green Bay. How does that match you?
I've got them a little bit over a full point better.
Okay. Kind of in the ballpark. It's the same thing. I mean, that's why I didn't downgrade Green Bay at all for that Atlanta game. I thought they played well on the road. It was very interesting. New Orleans will have a short week this week. So you always look at that, even though they have a veteran quarterback and a veteran defense. It's an entertaining game. This is the flip side of the Chargers and Minnesota. These are teams that are both 2-0. Is that
no?
Green
right? Bay lost.
Green Bay's 1-1. Sorry about that. They were 2-0 until they gave it up at the end. Okay. They're 2-0 in my mind because I won with Green Bay plus the 3 points. So
that's not how it works. You know what? You go with the guy that wants the refund on his prop.
Okay, yeah. So they're 1-1. So important game for Green Bay. Yeah, I have New Orleans slightly ahead, half, and you have them, 1. So we're both a little bit ahead. So we see this possibly as Green Bay -2 might be a little bit high compared to our numbers.
Yeah, it's a bit this is a sit and watch, or a teaser possibility. Saints and a teaser might be a look.
I'm trying to read my notes here. Yeah. I write so small.
I'll be thinking about a Saints teaser on this game.
Yeah, fundamentally sound defense. I think that'll be interesting. I could see this as a field goal game.
Yeah. I think this is an interesting game, Denver and Miami.
Yeah, boy. The question is this a hold your breath kind of game? Because that's what it might come down to for me. I'm seeing some situations that favor Denver in this game, some technical situations. Because of that, I have to do my homework and say, okay, Miami showed a little bit of a pass rush, but I don't have them right. Now, I started the year showing Miami as basically a C+ pass rush type team. And is that enough to bother Russell Wilson again? What's going on with Denver's defense? Has that taken a strange turn? The fact that they couldn't hold a 21-3 lead against a guy named Sam Howell. So I have to do a deeper dive.
Yeah, but Sam Howell's got a lot of weapons too.
He does. I like that wide receiver room a lot. Yeah, excellent point. And they use their running backs. They mix them in. They have good run-pass balance. I think they've used fundamentally sound game plans for what they are. But still, 30-some points on Denver at Denver. I can't get behind that. But I'm going to find it's going to be Denver or nothing for me because technically that's just what it calls out for on my analysis.
I'm pretty much in the same boat there. If I get involved, it certainly isn't going to be on the Miami side.
Vinny asked Cris a question. Cris, do you know the 0-2 team's record versus facing each other ATS record? I don't.
I know the 0-2 would. I don't understand the question actually. What?
Yeah. I think I'm going to try to read into this question thinking that he's asking, do you know whether or not does that mean the home team does better, or does the underdog do better, or is there a pronounced difference that way? I don't have that data. I can't tell you 0-2 facing 0-2 generally leads to high scoring games.
Well, the 0-2s are, well, you got the Bengals, Broncos, Chargers, Patriots, Texans, Bears, Cardinals, Panthers, Vikings. So Chargers and Vikings are facing each other. And that's it. Oh, let's see what I have here.
Yeah, all I can tell you, high scoring is what would be predicted based on 0-2 versus 0-2.
Let me see. It's going to favor the visiting dog. But with the Chargers in Minnesota, what good is that if it's going to be one way or the other?
Yeah.
So it doesn't really fit appropriately.
So we covered Denver, Miami. Buffalo, Washington is a suddenly interesting game because Buffalo is a touchdown road favorite. Have they earned your respect to be a touchdown road favorite?
Well, who's the better team, Washington or the Raiders?
I think Washington's a little better.
Okay. I mean, what did Buffalo close 7.5, and then they wanted 7 on the open on the road? That just seemed. I think Washington is not known for a home field for some reason. Gil always talks about it, that they have no home field whatsoever. But it just seems like a situation where Washington should be able to, be feisty enough to stay in this game, don't you think?
Yeah, I'm trying. My definition of a shutdown defense, one that can dictate play, even though Buffalo won 38-10 against the Raiders last week, I don't classify Buffalo as one of the teams that has a shutdown defense. So because of that, I think, I understand it from a power rating standpoint. I think the line is within range of where I would have put it. But from a fundamental standpoint, I just wouldn't want to be laying 6.5 on the road with Buffalo right now, week 3.
No, I took the 7 when the 7 was available. But 6.5 is pretty important.
Yeah, those are my notes exactly.
So we can make this an extra 30-minute show if we want to go over the Detroit Lions injuries.
Yeah, welcome to the Baltimore-San Francisco club.
They must all have the same trainer. So I think the line. I like what Campbell said. I think it's perfect, and I actually was thinking the exact same thing before I heard that he had said it. It was a good game to eat some humble pie. So I think that I thought they were better on track than they were. But apparently they were a little full of themselves. So now they're in a situation of having to band together and cover a lot of injuries and key injuries at that. So I don't think Atlanta is anything special. I'll tell you that 3 seems short, but my numbers say that if anything, that might be a little high.
Yeah, power rating wise, I have it where it is. I have 2 very strong, proven technical trends that go against each other. So that doesn't help me at all. Detroit has 1 defensive sack, and I didn't see that coming. Not that I thought they were the greatest defensive sacking team, but we talked about how Aiden Hutchinson could make other people better. I know there's some injuries, but 1 sack is 1 sack, and that's not good enough. Certainly not when you're playing against Seattle. You shouldn't be shut out in the sack department.
Well, the Mahomes are not supposed to get sacks, and I don't know. Gino got away with some ridiculous moves. How the hell he got out of a handful of what he was in the middle of is beyond me. That's all.
He made one throw that I would get in his face if he was a college sophomore. that he just tried to shovel the pass when he should have just ate the ball and lived for another down. I see some of these quarterbacks panic and do that kind of stuff.
He looked pretty darn good a handful of times, and he looked like an imbecile a couple of times. He had a wide range of variance. But what is the worst rule in football? Is it the fumble into the end zone and a touchback, or is it the only one team gets possession in a regular season overtime game on a coin flip? I mean,
well, the worst rule is a fumble in the end zone. But if you asked me this 10 years ago, I would have said I have no problem with one team getting the ball in overtime. But the rules are so skewed to offenses, and that you've seen point scoring going up, that now you have to adopt the college rule or do something where you have both teams have it, because we're not playing 2017 21-20 games like the old NFL because of the rules favoring quarterbacks and offenses. This has now become a rule that needs to be changed.
Oh, Indianapolis, Baltimore.
Yeah, what can I tell you about that game?
Do you ding the team? Do you ding? Where do you change the line if Minshew plays or Richardson plays?
I don't change it.
I agree.
I'm there. Certainly not against Baltimore. In fact, you might even want Minshew against Baltimore, much like a Baker Mayfield situation. I would trust Mayfield more, but Minshew has 4 or 5 years in the league. He's seen more defenses. Richardson has never seen Baltimore's defense before.
No, I agree with you on that. I'm hoping that but I don't know why this just feels like a flat spot for Baltimore. I guess it is, since it's after Cincinnati, and I don't have their schedule, but I think they have a divisional matchup ahead of them too, don't they?
Yeah. Baltimore kind of, did you see some of the cheap shots they claimed? I don't know, cheap shots, but they had some trash talk after the game. We owed Cincinnati. We did this and this and this. They're not letting go of the Cincinnati game. So to your point about divisional game, this is a typical Kansas City, typical Baltimore spot where you think, okay, Baltimore is a better team, but they're going to find a way to make this closer than the line. It just reeks of we're going to have trouble in this game, and we're going to find a way to win at the end.
I got Indianapolis in for a small bet at the wire. I was pretty impressed. I mean, I don't think Houston's complete and utter garbage, but the box score pretty much says they are.
Yeah, I don't think Houston was built to handle that kind of quarterback. Houston is in the rebuilding stage. They're not equipped to do anything but play just regular football, get to know their teammates, get the chemistry going. Richardson didn't pass his way to the 14 points before he went out. He ran for those 14 points. So, that's tough on a rookie team in Houston. 4th coach in 4 years for Houston. So I think Indy had a situational advantage. I didn't play the game, so it's nice to talk about in retrospect and say, oh yeah, Indy had the situational advantage. I wish I would have known that beforehand. But now that I had time to digest what happened, it was just a situation where Indy will face a different team this week.
And if memory serves me right, that game, as Bertie pointed out, is with Cleveland, and that should be in Cleveland next week, because Baltimore's first 3 divisional games are all on the road. I remembered. So they just cannot afford to just let this game slip, because I think that Cleveland's a tough team. They better be coming ready to play. But Baltimore teasers are going to be popular. But boy, I remember sweating out a Baltimore lock. I forget who it was. Was it Denver? Yeah, it was Denver last year. And they only won the game. I think the game was ready to go into overtime or something, or it was a last minute sort of thing, and they ended up winning the game by 1. Everybody, I think that was a survivor nightmare for people in that. So it just scares me when these good teams that are inconsistent play bad teams. Carolina and Seattle. That was pretty bad last night.
Yeah, well, Carolina lacks any sort of weaponry. I mean, they don't have a great offensive line. They're horrible at wide receiver. I think Thielen is a smart guy, so he got open. He moved. You notice on the touchdown that he caught that he moved one of his other teammates in the proper position so that there was spacing so that he could run the route. But Thielen right now is a security blanket for Bryce Young. There's nobody that's reliable deep or nobody that can run a proper route that's more than 10 yards. And Bryce Young does not have weapons on that team. You mentioned Frank Wright. I think his Lester, there was a reason why he didn't last in Indianapolis. And this is a young team that's going to go through growing pains. And Carolina lost J.C. Horn to IR. I don't remember it's for the year or for the next 4 weeks. But either way, they lost. Didn't they lose another guy, Shaq Thompson, last
He's done
as well?
Yeah.
A lot of injuries, of course, are piling up. Young teams especially can't afford injuries. So this is a learning curve for Carolina. Would you trust Seattle at that number? No, you couldn't trust them against the Rams week 1. So I don't know if you trust them there. But any team that has DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett as wideouts is one play away from a 70-yard touchdown.
Lockett played amazing. Just very impressive. Very impressive.
He was one of my favorite players in college.
Do you rate the quarterback position every week, Ron?
And I just responded to that.
Oh,
I factor in the type of defenses new and young quarterbacks are facing from week to week.
Okay. I want nothing to do with the Carolina-Seattle game. I can't see myself getting involved. Dallas and Arizona.
Russell says Carolina, Seattle under, and I wouldn't particularly take that due to garbage time and due to the fact that I don't think Seattle has a complete defense. I think you could have some broken plays in the game. I wouldn't necessarily trust the over-under in that game. I could see it going either way.
It's been pretty stagnant, 41 and a half, 42.
And Wes says, do you guys ever try to middle games? And Cris and I have had this conversation going on a number of years. It's not the wild, wild west like it used to be before. Every internet sports book in America and offshore cloned everybody else. In the old days with bookies and limousines and whatever, middling was part of the portfolio. It was happening on a constant basis, especially with lower scoring games. So you had smaller variance of outcomes. But Cris, it's harder to middle games now for me. I don't know about you.
That's what I spend. I spend hours every day trying to set up middles in the NFL through various methods. It's my number one focus after I'm done betting. So I hit a couple this past week. What did I hit? The Denver middle.
But do you have to do it with alternate lines?
Yeah. I had 2 and 3 team parlays on the alternate line. So I had Kansas City plus 3.5 with Denver plus 3.5. It's somebody else. It was Buffalo plus 3.5. So I was doing a bunch of those types of things, and when it gets down to the last one, it puts you into hedging positions where you can throw money lines into them, and you can use the 7.5 lines, and or you can buy up and down through the various numbers. But the problem is with DraftKings and FanDuel, they'll give you a line on every one of those. The real work is trying to find the value, because nearly all the alternate lines are complete and utter ripoffs. But your hours and hours and hours of constantly checking and rechecking, you find some diamond in the rough alternate lines that you can work with. And you have to double check. It's like, what? Are they really going to give me that? It's like, so I've seen situations where, like, I think I mentioned it last week, it was basketball where they had the plus 4.5 priced better than the plus 3.5. So I actually saw a photo of it. I took a photo of it. So no, yeah, I spent a lot of time middling on the games, but it's not chasing the normal lines as much. It's the goofy lines.
Yeah, I think the bottom line here is we just can't treat, if you treat middling as traditional middling, trying to get 6.5, 7.5, or 3, 4, sides or middles or like that. Those days, it's just harder to do now. And it takes a lot of time to search and hope that based on the minus 110 or minus 108 or whatever juice you can have, it's just not as easy. It's not even close to being as easy as it used to be.
What do you think about the pressure Carolina is going to put on Gino?
I don't know that Carolina puts a lot of pressure. Burns is off to a slow start, and maybe he gets rolling. I mean, certainly, Seattle still might be down 2 offensive linemen, at least one, if not both. So there's a chance that there will be an opportunity. Let's see, Carolina does have 8 sacks, so I take it back, 4 in each game against Ritter and against the quarterback last night. So that's not bad. I think that should be Carolina's game plan to try to pressure them. If they don't get through, then Lockett has a big play. That's why the over-under, isn't to my liking. But yeah, I think Carolina has that possibility. That's a good call.
So other than Mike McCarthy Coach of the Year ticket, obviously still being alive, is there anything to discuss in this game? Dallas, Arizona?
Well, for all those people who think Arizona's tanking, they're obviously not tanking. They're not good enough, and they lost another player to injury. Dallas is absolutely firing on all cylinders. Still, I'm going to have a technical situation that favors Arizona. Probably sit on the sidelines anyway, but the technical situation I show in this game will favor Arizona.
How many teams do you think have scored in every quarter through the 2 games?
Oh, my goodness. Great question. I'll say 3.
Well, then name them.
I have no idea. Let's go with San Francisco. Let's go with let's go with San Francisco, Dallas, and Miami.
Tampa.
Ooh.
I pulled that out this afternoon, this morning. I thought that was pretty good. But the Cowboys' defense has forced turnovers on 30.4% of the opponent's drive in the first 2 games. That's absurd.
Yeah, they're playing outstanding ball. If push came to shove, I actually have Dallas as my highest power-rated team through 2 games. I don't know if it's sustainable, but that's where I have them.
The Bears. KC.
The line's slightly inflated, but I don't think I would take the Bears if you gave me 20.
Well, Kansas City doesn't seem to be doing much scoring. What happens if they actually just start to run Fields instead of trying to make them pocket pass against Kansas City?
Well, that's, I think, what you want to do. What you want to do is shorten the game if you're Chicago. You want to do anything and everything to keep Mahomes off the field, because wouldn't you say that Mahomes, if he gets in rhythm, that he's going to have his pick of wide open receivers against the Bears?
Well, yeah, supposedly, but he's having trouble with all these young kids.
Yeah, they're not running proper routes. Remember, guys like Aaron Rodgers, Pat Mahomes, and so on, when they tell you, certainly Peyton Manning, when they tell you to run a 10-yard route, they don't mean 9.5 yards, and they don't mean 10.5 yards. They mean 10, and you cut at a certain point. They have like 10 targets to throw to. I could probably name about 7 of them. None of them can run a route right now that's to Mahomes' liking. So it's nice to have Travis Kelce back as a security blanket, because he knows where Kelsey's going to be all the time, just like Brady knew where Gronkowski was going to be all the time. But against the Bears, everybody's going to be open.
Well. The interesting thing that I heard today, I think it was Colin Cowherd was pointing out that he believes that, and I kind of see where he's going with this. He believes you pay, the Kansas City's theory was they're going to pay Jones on defense, and that's where they're going to put their money on the defense, and they'll use duct tape and spit and WD-40 on the rest of the defense and put all the money in the offense. And he equates it sort of like with what the Rams situation is. You have Donald paying him the big bucks and nobody else, and the rest of the money is going to the offense. So, and it's not looking horrible this year yet. We'll have to see what they do with Cincinnati. But just an interesting comment I thought I would run by you. Any thoughts on that?
That's what Miami does. They put everything into speed on offense, and then they paid Ramsey to team up on the back end of the defense, because the prevailing thing is that good teams, really good teams like Kansas City and like what Miami strives to be, they don't care if you run on them. They just don't want you to beat their secondary. They don't want you to beat you over the top. And you're not going to beat them. And eventually you're going to have a Mahomes, because they're concentrating, like you said, on paying the offense, or a Tua paying the offense. It's the same kind of thing. I think that's kind of the wisdom right now with a lot of teams. Do that kind of thing.
Well, you said your piece on that. Steelers, Raiders. That Steelers offense is so scary bad.
Yeah. Matt Canada is not in high regard as an offensive play caller. Let's just put it that way.
Just torture. What, it was a shame, because I told somebody last night when the Steelers are favored, I go, the Raiders will get played this morning, and sure enough, they did. That's pretty much where I had the line.
Yeah, I skewed the line a little bit. Under normal circumstances, I would have made Vegas as a 1-point favorite. I think they're deserving of a little bit more, with Pittsburgh coming off a short week, with a situational play that works in Vegas's favor, and another situational play that would work against Pittsburgh. There's reasons to like Vegas in this game, even though TJ Watt, comes from another planet in terms of how he does different things. Jimmy G, he's got 3 interceptions on the year. So he does a lot of good things, but he has been turnover prone throughout his career. If you really take a close look, there have been times, because of the way San Francisco's play calling is so good, there have been times that Jimmy G did not throw interceptions when he was at San Francisco. But for the most part, I think the game hinges on how many turnovers Jimmy G is going to have.
Well, that might be a problem this game. As far as 6.5-point teasers, you have to check the money line, because you're 6.5. Oftentimes, you're just better off doing the money line, because the money line is going to be cheaper. And then another, I don't know how to explain it. Let me look at this money line real quick. What are we looking at?
I'm going to say the same thing I always say while you're looking. Be careful with teases. You have to apply probability theory to teasers. You should anyway. What's the percentage that you're going to win at these odds versus these odds? Giving 1 instead of giving 7.5 or something like that. And then what's the probability that you're going to have another game that you pair with it that you are going to have that? And then you have to multiply that probability, because what's the numbers, like 73% you have to hit to break even. Teases, don't just think you're getting gifted these points and you're stealing from books. I mean, books put out teases, and it's by definition called teases for a reason. I will say it again, even though I appear to be in the minority, be careful with teases.
Well, you have to remember that you've got $2.80 or $2.80 into that leg of the teaser. So you can't take one like where was it? Somebody, there's not a perfect situation on the board at the moment, but usually you'll see those 6.5-point favorites, and you can find a money line cheaper than 280. So you would just take the money line. Then this came up actually, Ron. Somebody actually pretty smart, generally, was asking about teasing an odd combination of numbers, and I said, "Wait a minute," and I said, "Well, just look at the alternate line." And the alternate line was cheaper than what that teaser leg was going to be. So another reason why I'm looking at alternate lines all the time is they could be mispriced versus where the line is and what a teaser price would be for that. So not only am I trying to chase the middles, I'm trying to see if it's, potentially it could be used or integrated some way, somehow as a complicated teaser equation, if that makes any sense. I'm sure I just confused everybody, but
yeah, I don't want to confuse anybody too much more as well, as probably for another show. But I know Cris and I, especially Cris, has talked about how you're not making parlays or teaser bets in games in the same time period. And so rather than worrying around 6 points and paying all this stuff, or paying minus 130 to try to win 2 games for the price of 1, a technique that I would have considered would be, you have the Pittsburgh at 2.5 or a soft 3 or something like that. If you really like Pittsburgh, and I did like Pittsburgh last night, what about, finding another game and just moving them, just buying points and moving them to a 7 and pairing them to somebody else? Then if you're live with the 7, you have a lot of possibilities by the time it gets to Monday night. I don't need to go from 2.5 to 8.5 and 9.5. I'd rather just go to 7, 7.5, and make that a plus money parlay operation than a minus parlay, minus teaser operation. I'd much rather have plus money possibilities. That's a show for another day.
The other thing that you can do also is you can basically do one-legged teasers with a money line, so to speak. Like last week I did, it lost, but I did the Detroit Lions money line into an alternate line of plus 7.5, I think New England or something. Yeah. So I got the teaser effect with New England, and I had to pay, it was a much better price to do it that way. But as Robert says, the payoffs on teasers are a joke. They can be. I mean, it's getting much, much harder to find adequate teaser pricing. But you have to know what you're doing with your teasers. You have to be going through the right numbers. And there are lots of exceptions to the rules. There's lots of teasers that do work other than Wong teasers. Probably 50% of my teasers last year were not Wong teasers, and had a very high ROI last year on those. So you got to know what you're doing. You got to dig deeper and see where the values are. But teasers can be just fine.
Yeah. I'd rather just keep the plus money and move the line to a certain place. I like the concept of Monday Night Football having 2 games, because then you get some real possibilities to have some live action going into Monday, if you like one of those games. Bottom line, never force a play.
I just wish that they would have staggered them a little bit better. Eagles, Buccaneers, my friend. Tell me, what do you think?
Well, Tampa Bay, I believe the number for people who like meaningless trends would be 9 out of the last 10 they've won as a Monday night. They've covered as a Monday night home dog. But I like the fact that Philadelphia has had 10 days to get their machine oiled a little bit more. It'll be an interesting matchup because this is a veteran team versus a veteran team. Tampa's not played the toughest competition the first 2 weeks. There's been soft spots in Minnesota, and Minnesota gifted away that game. And then last week, Tampa played Chicago, so we know what Chicago is. Now they're going to go against a pretty loaded Philadelphia team. So it'll be interesting to see if Hurts gets a little bit more on the ball. You said Hurts is Hurts, so to speak, or at least that's what Dr. McNabb said. So we'll see about that. But your friend Swift, running back Swift, who came over from Detroit, he's really good when healthy. The question is, how many days can he stay healthy?
He'll last another few games and he'll be out.
They really used him. They used him above and beyond belief. The last time they played on the Thursday game with 20 plus carries and so on. I thought they would do more rotational, even though I was high on their ability to run the ball in that game. It's going to be tougher to run the ball on Tampa. So this one's going to be a little bit more on Hurts.
So where do you have the Rams rated versus the Bengals?
Well, the Bengals, I don't have rated right now because based on where the line is, everybody thinks Joe Burrow's not playing this week. So there is no line for me on the Bengals. The Bengals look terrible on paper. If you look at their run defense, they look like they've been gashed. But they played Nick Chubb and they played Lamar Jackson and Gus Edwards. Philadelphia, they played some tough teams. I think Cincinnati is going to get better defensively as the year goes on. But you got to wonder about the lingering effects of Joe Burrow right now, even though he's got weapons galore around him. I still think Cincinnati's a viable team. As long as they don't get to 12 wins, I don't care. But you have to wonder. How can you power rate them right now without Burrow? I don't even remember who their backup is.
You can take the over 9.5 on the season wins now.
No interest. I'd rather stick with my under 12.
I know.
You were there when I was there, but I went back and did it again. So.
Well, you just disappoint me that you don't have these teams rated. So.
I don't have Cincinnati rated right now. They were pre-rated. I think 29.5 on my list. They're 29 right now. That would be the equivalent of about 7th best in the league, 7, 8, 9. I rate them exactly where Baltimore was before the Baltimore game.
You're getting a kick in the nuts for that.
Okay, that's good to know. I knew we'd have some disagreements somewhere.
Well, I think that game got hammered because people were going to bet the Rams anyway. So the line is just sitting in a strange spot, and everybody says the Rams will close the favorite if Burrow's announced out. So that just seems
how many points is he worth then? Because if both teams were healthy, this was Super Bowl revenge, standalone Monday night early season game for Cincinnati. This was ideal spot for Cincinnati that no longer feels anywhere close to ideal.
That's true.
Jake Browning is the backup quarterback.
Oh,
that's got to
haven't heard from him in forever.
That's probably 8 points off the top of my head, which would mean Rams by 1.
Yeah, that's what they say it'll be. No, you can never take a teaser from 3 to 9.
That's wasting money. Do probability theory on that, and you will lose. If you played that 100 times, you would be down probably, let's say, 10 to 12% of your bankroll.
Yeah, it could be worse than that. That's horrible. You always, you don't always you can't start or finish a teaser at 3. You got to remember that. There's a simple rule there. You can never start or stop a teaser at 3.
I think the underrated concept is you have to have some knowledge of math and probability to play exotic wagers. That's just my personal opinion. But I think you have to, you can't just do this blindly. You really have to know what numbers are worth.
That one's closer, but not quite. It's close. Yeah. All right. I'm anything else? We're done. Did we put in our, we're overtime.
I have, let's see, the 2 games we have for Friday's show. And if you watch Friday's show, you saw Puka Nacua go berserk in his, he had 10 catches the first week. He had 15 last week. So I'm
2
just
weeks
curious
in a
who
row,
our guests are
really?
going to be. Yeah. New Orleans and Green Bay. I think that's a good game. And I guess we'll figure out what to say about Chicago and KC.
Well, that's it, Ron. Everybody that joined us and listened to us chat, I hope there was something to have been absorbed. And appreciate everybody joining and the questions. We will be back on Friday at noon again. We're going to do Friday at noon.
I think we'll do Friday at noon. We may do a little bit later next Tuesday, maybe 1 o'clock, but stay tuned. We'll figure it out.
Jesus. All right. Good luck, everybody.